Hi everybody, and welcome back to Murder at Bedtime. I think you all know the drill by now. No waffle here, all the waffle is at the end. You know I think you're all awesome, you know that. So let's crack on with the story of Celine Figard. He had had a fantastic Christmas with his family. It had been magical, but now it was back to work. With a big sigh, he pulled on his big jacket, hugged his son, and kissed his wife and walked out the front door. He crossed the road to the petrol station. He waved to one of the two station attendants who let him park his truck there. He really hoped they had enjoyed the French champagne he had given them as a thank you. He let himself into his big white Mercedes truck, made himself comfortable, started the engine, and with one final check he pulled back the curtain just to make sure the dead girl was still laying undisturbed on the bunk bed. And satisfied she was, he then pulled out into the morning traffic. On December the 29th, 1995, a local businessman stopped to fix a broken windscreen wiper in a lay-by on the northern carriageway of the A449 between Worcester and Kidderminster at a village called Hawford. Glancing into the undergrowth behind the lay-by, he saw something. Looking more closely, he realised it was the naked body of a female. He immediately drove home to ring the police. The 2-week search for 19-year-old French student Celine Figard was over, and sadly not in the way everyone had hoped and prayed for. Celine was born in Besançon, France, on the 23rd of May 1976 to Martine and Bernard Figard. She had 2 brothers and a sister. She was a very intelligent, articulate, polite young lady. She was confident but way too trusting in her father's opinion. She was studying accountancy at university in France. She had first visited the UK in 1990 and had developed a fondness for the country and visited whenever she could. In 1995 she had spent the summer working at the Ashbourne Hotel in Fordingbridge in Hampshire, where her cousin Jean-Marc was the head waiter. She had enjoyed herself so much that she decided to visit once again over the Christmas holidays. On the 18th of December, Celine left her hometown of Ferrières-de-Sey to travel the 400 miles to Calais with a family friend called Guy, who owned a haulage firm. Her father arranged it with his friend to take her as far as Dover, and she would catch trains from there to Fordingbridge. But for some reason they ended up going through the Eurotunnel instead of the ferry and ended up in Ashford in Kent. Now, I guess now that Guy was going in a different direction, because they now asked around, and a fellow French truck driver, Roger Bouvier, agreed to take Celine on as far as Chieveley Services near Newbury in Berkshire. When they arrived there, Celine attempted to ring her cousin Jean-Marc to come and collect her, but due to the telephone dialing codes being recently changed, since Celine was in the UK last, she basically now had the wrong number, so couldn't get hold of him. Now it would appear that while Celine and Roger were having discussions, asking if anyone could take her further towards her destination, another driver overheard them and offered to take Celine as far as Salisbury, which was only 11 miles from Fordingbridge. Now Roger did say later that he didn't like the look of the man and wasn't happy with her going with him. But what could he do? He'd only met her that day, and she was 19. She was a young lady. If she had set her mind on leaving with this other driver, who was he to stop her? Whatever people might say about the poor man later. Celine got into the man's white Mercedes truck and left Chieveley services at approximately 4:30 p.m. Early the following morning, clearly worried that Celine hadn't arrived and he hadn't heard from her, Jean-Marc phoned Bernard in France. Bernard told Jean-Marc to ring the police, which he did, and a search was initiated straight away. At first it was thought Celine may be another victim of the killer that the press had already dubbed the Midland Ripper, who was wanted for the murder of 20-year-old Birmingham sex worker Samo Paul, who had been strangled and dumped by the M1 motorway in Swindford, Leicestershire in December 1993. And in March 1994, 32-year-old Tracy Turner, who was found strangled and dumped naked by the side of the M1 just 6 miles from where Samo was found. Celine's autopsy revealed that she had been bludgeoned with a heavy object which had caused a fracture to the back of her head. She had then been strangled with a strap. There were signs of sex taking place, and although it couldn't be confirmed that Celine had been raped, it was thought strongly that it had been against her will, as there was evidence her hands had been taped together. They believed that she had been killed 2 to 3 days after her abduction, meaning that she had been held captive before she was murdered. On the 12th of January, the police announced they would be performing DNA screening on all drivers nationwide who drove a white Mercedes truck. Over 5,000 men, the first time a DNA test had been done nationally. At the end of January, a reconstruction of Celine's disappearance was aired on BBC's Crime Watch programme, along with a photo picture and a picture of a bottle of Pascal Chrétien champagne, only sold in France and not exported to other countries. Celine had been given this as a present, and she had it with her, and it was now missing. The programme hotline received over 600 calls, and even though many of these turned out to be dead ends, 2 people gave the name of the same man, and one of them, a petrol station attendant, had received a bottle of Pascal Chrétien champagne, and the man who gave him it drove a white Mercedes truck. On the 19th of February, police arrived at a house in Poole, Dorset, and arrested 36-year-old truck driver Stuart Morgan. Morgan at first denied ever meeting Celine, but after being picked out in identification parade by a customer at the service station, even though he had dyed his hair and shaved off his beard, he changed his story to admitting to giving Celine a lift. She started flirting with him, and it ended up with them having consensual sex. They then became firm friends, with him waving goodbye to her as she smilingly left him in Salisbury. Unfortunately for the not very bright Morgan, the police found traces of Celine's blood in his truck. They found items belonging to Celine behind the wall of a warehouse he stopped at on the way from dumping Celine's body. That was after he removed a fuse in his tachograph that shows how many miles he has driven that day and at what speed. But unfortunately, he forgot to put the fuse back. In so, the discrepancy on his tachograph brought up a red flag. Along with the champagne he gave to the petrol station assistant and the way he had poured battery acid all over the mattress from his cab, which was found in his garage, he was pretty much banged to rights. But of course, he still denied it. And of course, at the subsequent trial, his scumbag of a defence lawyer tried to paint Celine as a drug-taking slut. But fortunately, the jury took absolutely no notice of this disgusting specimen, and Morgan was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommended sentence of 20 years before he could apply for parole. Now, he appealed this in February 1998, but was rejected. He then appealed against the length of his sentence in 2009. This was also rejected. He became eligible for parole in 2016, but at this time is still in prison. Celine was buried in her hometown in France on January the 20th, 1996, after a service given in front of 3,000 people. The villages of Ombersley in Worcestershire, near where Celine was murdered, clubbed together to open a garden of remembrance to Celine at the local church of St Andrews. Along with English students Joanna Parrish and Carol Dickinson, who were murdered in France, they have an annual service which is attended by Celine's parents. Now, a very sad tale, and not very Christmassy, I'm afraid. Made much sadder by the time of year and the fact Christmas will no longer be the magical time it once was for the family and friends of Celine. So rest in peace, Celine. Anyway, it's that time now. It's waffle time, where I give you a load of gobbledygook and you either stay up or you do the wise thing and go to sleep. So I hope you don't all switch me off and get stuck into the booze, because I am recording this on New Year's Eve. And I'm going to have a couple of rum and cokes myself. Anyway, as my new YouTube channel, The Exiled Yellow Belly, rises to the heights of 15 subscribers, would you please check it out? And if you enjoy it, please like and subscribe and ding the bell. It really does help. Apparently, I know nothing about algorithms, but it does. I'd like to wish everybody who either listens to me on my podcast or watches my YouTube channels a brilliant new year, and I hope you all had a fabulous Christmas. I think you are all awesome, and I hope you continue to watch and listen to my stories, waffles and gobbledygook next year, which I really do hope is a better one for us all. I'd like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to my listeners in Malaysia, who for some reason get me into their true crime charts every month. So please forgive the pronunciation, but terima kasih. Please stay safe and have a great New Year's weekend, and see you next year. See you soon.